Hello, friends and neighbors, welcome in the light, where laughter's the answer and hearts are shining bright, with calloused hands and wits, so raise your sharp. Let's praise a place where love ignites the spark.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. And happy 250th birthday this Saturday to America! Well, this weekend we went to Kansas City. The cool last week turned into a heat advisory week this week, and it looks like the 4th is going to be hot, hot, hot. Of course, the heat dries the hay, but it rained 2 inches over the weekend, which is not what my Apple weather told me would happen. But what do you expect? I cut hay last week, so that's why it rained. And we need it. KC, by the way, was great. We saw Tate and Miranda and our grandson Austin, who is growing just as fast as he possibly can. Just a quick trip down to Missouri to see the kids and back in time to move the chickens. We lost a couple of trees this weekend that I had been keeping an eye on because, well, they had split each down the center, and at some point, well, I knew they were going to go. Fortunately, neither one did any harm to anything around it, and I'll use some of the straighter branches on those trees to make my roosts for Hanhala, which, if you want to see what that is and what I've been yammering on about for so long, well, just sign up for our newsletter using the link in the show notes, and we'll show you what we're doing. Private links to the videos of our projects here at Sunnyside. That comes out tomorrow, by the way, June 30th, but you got to sign up. Use the link in the show notes for our newsletter. Of course, Kansas City, by the way, is one of the host cities for the FIFA World Cup, whatever that is. It's going on right now, and it's been going on for a while. And I'm going to talk about it today. And specifically, as we roll into an apropos, a very hot week of weather, just like Philadelphia 250 years ago. I'd be remiss if I didn't find a way to tie everything together. Well, it's a veritable hat trick with the World Cup, our 250th Independence Day, and an ode to air conditioning. Folks, I've been lucky enough in my 51 years to experience the bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of America's birthday, and also now this year, the 250th. I don't know if I'll see 300, but just in case I don't, just in time for this weekend, while you're cruising around on the boat or hanging out with family or grilling the dogs or the steaks or the burgers or whatever it is that you happen to be grilling, hopefully you're grilling something, I've got 2 new tracks that I made just for you, just for this episode. But first, a throwback to one of our earlier season parodies of life in colonial America, specifically Boston, and a conversation which may have happened in the Green Dragon Tavern, which, by the way, still exists.
Barkeep, a pint of lager, if you'd be so kind.
Hello, John. Barkeep, make that 2, sir.
Ah, Mr. Revere, how are you?
Well enough. You? How's Abigail?
Oh, she's well, as am I. Some of the kids have been ill of late, but they're on the mend.
Things are going around. I'm surprised to see you. What with all the clamor lately about, you know.
Indeed. I've been lying low to some degree, but the law practice insists I carry on in some capacity.
Same here. Silver won't smith itself, although, truth be told, not much silver being smithed these days, mostly just pig iron and horseshoes.
Are you still, in the movement?
Excuse me, lads. I'll need a bit of attention from the barkeep.
Yes.
Indeed.
Of course, sir.
No reason a fine officer of His Majesty's army shouldn't enjoy a good lager here at the regular old no problems of any sort Green Dragon Tavern.
Righto, barkeep. I'll have what they're having. Thank you. Carry on, lads.
Oh, my God! Can you believe?
Absolutely detestable. The audacity.
Why, if I...
Excuse me again, lads. Sorry. I left my purse right here. That's it.
Oh, yes. There it is, right where you left it.
Now, rascally colonists didn't help yourself to me coins, did you?
Oh, no, sir.
Certainly not. We would never.
Just kidding. Giving you boys a bit of grit, that's all. Carry on.
Unbelievable.
Despotic! I say, if again I were...
One more thing. I don't suppose either of you, good gents, have seen this fella Hancock about.
No,
Not sure what you mean exactly.
I don't believe so, no.
Someone from around here?
Oh, indeed. John Hancock. He's from right here in Boston. But he likes to mull about here now and again. Thought I'd have a chance to meet him. You know, I'm kind of a fan.
A fan? Really? I didn't think you fellows thought very much of him.
Oh, yes, we're very interested in Mr. Hancock. We'd all like to meet him someday. Hopefully. The sooner the better, really.
Well, we haven't seen him around here, but I'm sure if you let the other patrons know you're trying to meet him, one of them may know his whereabouts.
Fine idea, mate. I shall do that. Ahoy! Patrons of the Green Dragon, you, sir. You look like a man in the know.
Disgusting.
That was close. We mustn't let them find John.
He's one the crown desperately wishes to silence.
Let's keep it to ourselves.
Ha! Keep what to ourselves?
Hello, Sam. Paul and I were just discussing the weather.
What are you drinking there, cousin?
Oh, this, some local swill. Not very good.
He's drinking your brew, Sam. Everyone here is drinking Sam Adams Boston Lager.
Even that lobster back over there.
By Jupiter! What's the world coming to? A man can't even enjoy one of his own, carefully crafted, well marketed, explicitly branded, patriotically romanticized, mediocre flavored lagers. I say, wait until I tell our friend John Hancock about this.
Good Lord, cousin. Can you not keep your mouth shut for just 1 minute?
What's wrong with you two?
Oh, hello. You look familiar.
I'm Samuel Adams.
He's my cousin, sir.
He's a bit feeble-minded.
I am not.
Yes, you are, Sam.
Ixnay on the Hancock, hey?
I can't understand a word you're saying.
You see, sir, he's an idiot.
I'm sorry to hear that. My brother is also feeble-minded.
I'm not feeble-minded.
Oh, of course not. Tut tut. Let me just say that my brother, though he is one feeble-minded little vest button, is truly a joy to me and my family. I think he has taught me more about life than any of my proctors.
All right, then. How about I buy you, sir, another savory Boston lager?
That's not necessary, is it?
Right. With his unique circumstances, it wouldn't be right.
Oh, on the contrary, my colonial friends. I've learned that one must make the most of these opportunities to help our enfeebled brothers feel as though they were one of us.
I'm not enfeebled.
Of course not. I'll take that savory lager you offered.
Oh, for crying out loud.
We really must be going, sir.
Nonsense. We have nowhere to be. I told John Hancock we'd be right here.
Shh. Oh, come on.
Really,
Such nonsense.
dread not, my friends. I understand what's happening here.
You do?
Indeed. My brother, too, has often conjured magnificent stories. Why, he once informed our entire family at Sunday dinner that King George himself was meeting him later in the garden. Thanks for the lager. A bit hoppy for my taste, but you colonials have your own crosses to bear, I suppose.
Puppy?
Yes, Sam. Happy to meet you too, my special friend. Remember, you two, if you do happen to see Mr. Hancock, remind him. I'd love to have a chat sometime.
That did not just happen.
But it could have.
Now, folks, I don't want to get hyper rhapsodical here, but the history of air conditioning is the ultimate testament to human beings, looking at Mother Nature's summer itinerary and saying, yeah, thanks for the invitation, but we're going to go ahead and pass. Before the advent of manufactured frost, humanity's summer survival strategy was basically, sweating like a glass blower's I can't even say it. Sometimes the things that you write aren't as funny Well, this is very funny. It's a funny line. I'll say it again. Humanity's summer survival strategy was basically sweating like a glassblower's ass in July and praying for a mild autumn. Now, here's the chronological evolution, my friends, of how we learned to freeze our collective assets on demand. First, ancient Egypt. Slaves hung wet reeds in windows to catch the desert breeze. In the Roman Empire, aqueduct water pumped directly through villa walls to cool the masonry. Frederick Tudor, the Ice King, shipped frozen lake chunks worldwide. But here's the problem with ice, folks. It melts, it leaves puddles, and it creates more ambient humidity than a steam room at the YMCA. The year? 1902. The location? A muggy subterranean printing plant in Brooklyn, New York. The problem? Sackett-Willems lithographing had paper that was warping worse than a cheap Salvador Dali knockoff. The pioneer? None other than Willis Carrier, a young engineer with a brain like a slide rule on fire. The breakthrough? Well, he ran air over cold coils to control the humidity, accidentally creating modern AC, air conditioning. The focus? Well, it wasn't about human comfort, really. It was entirely about keeping the ink from smudging. Now, early systems during the industrial era were massive, toxic behemoths used only in textile mills and tobacco plants. But in the 1920s, movie palaces realized they could sell tickets by offering refrigerated air. And people didn't care what film was playing. They just wanted to escape the swelter. So, the summer blockbuster was born because the theater was colder than a landlord's heart. Post-World War II America saw the rise of the cheap window unit AC. The Sun Belt, Houston, Phoenix, Miami, places like that. Well, they suddenly became actually habitable. And front porches, which, man, I love front porches. And they were such a huge part of architecture that somehow vanished. Well, they did vanish because everyone was inside huddling around the Sears Kenmore. AC fundamentally rewrote the demographic map of the United States. Fortunate or unfortunate, should people be living in Phoenix, Arizona? I guess. Look, which aspect of the great thermodynamic paradigm shift should we explore next? I'll tell you. It goes like this. Let's talk about a guy named Willis Carrier. Now, he wasn't just an engineer, friends. He was the Prometheus of the thermostat, snatching the fire of ambient humidity right out of the sky and handing us a block of ice instead. Willis Carrier. He is the absolute patron saint, if there is such a thing, of anyone who has ever survived an August afternoon in Houston without melting into a puddle of existential dread. Here is the blueprint on the man, Willis Carrier, who made the Sun Belt possible. He was born in 1876 on a farm in Angola, New York, and as a kid, he couldn't grasp fractions to save his life. His mama cut up apples into halves and quarters to try to teach him, and he developed a lifelong obsession with solving problems both visually and mathematically. Yeah, this guy named Willis Carrier. He snagged a mechanical engineering degree from Cornell in 1901, 125 years ago. Well, that's half the time that we've had our birthday this year. The eureka moment came in 1902. He was standing on a train platform in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was soupier than a bowl of chowder in a Dickens novel. He realized that he could dry air by passing it through water to create fog. Control the water temperature, control the fog, control the humidity. And then he installed the world's first air conditioner that same year, 1902, in Brooklyn. Now, in 1915, he and 6 buddies pooled about $32,600 to form the Carrier Engineering Corporation. We'll come back to that. That's about enough money to buy a decent used sedan today, but they were able to launch an empire. And they realized that factories were fine in that time, but the real money was going to be in curing human misery, which would come a little bit later. So old Carrier took his centrifugal chiller to the Rivoli Theater in Times Square in 1925. And moguls, you know, the people in high society, those folks, they watched a movie without sweating through their tuxedos. They wore tuxedos to the movie theater. Can you imagine, you flip-floppers? So the legacy of the Ice King worked like this. He moved his whole operation, the whole circus, to Syracuse, New York in the 1930s. And at the World's Fair, his Igloo of Tomorrow stole the show at the 1939 Expo. He died in 1950, but that was just as the window unit was about to explode, not actually, into suburbia. Now, he didn't live to see it, but he single-handedly killed the architectural necessity of the front porch. Dang! Why can't we have both? Of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg, friends. If you want to keep riding this thermodynamic train, check this out. If you think starting a business today is tough because you have to navigate some bureaucratic red tape and a lukewarm Yelp review, you need to calibrate your perspective, because Willis Carrier didn't just take a gamble. He put his entire life on the line during a geopolitical meltdown. I'm going to break down the three movements of this thermodynamic symphony. Goes like this. Movement 1, the wartime roll of the dice. The backdrop is 1915. Europe is chewing itself to pieces in World War I, and the American economy is pulling its neck into its shell like an anxious box turtle. The panic, Buffalo Forge. That's the company where Carrier was working. Well, it panics and scraps their entire air conditioning division to cut costs. You know how that works. And the absolute audacity. Instead of polishing up his resume like a rational human being, Willis Carrier grabs 6 other engineers, like I mentioned, pulls together $32,600 and starts Carrier Engineering Corporation. I love it. American ingenuity. Everyone thought he was a lunatic, but Carrier realized that wartime meant factories needed precision. So he starts installing systems in places like the International Arms and Fuse Company to keep ammunition fuse powder from getting soggy. He turned a global crisis of World War I into a proof of concept. Now, the B-sides of the cool genius. Here's how this works. Let's call this Movement 2. The sonic curtain. Carrier wasn't a one-trick pony. No, in 1919, he got obsessed with how sound waves would move through the atmosphere, and so he invented sonic curtains. Did you know that? It was a multi-layered fabric monstrosity that muffled factory roar and eventually laid the acoustic groundwork for modern recording studios, just like the one we have here at Sunnyside Farms. Now, then came industrial dehydration. Long before your local hipster was dehydrating kale, Carrier was building massive industrial drying systems. He figured out how to dehydrate everything from macaroni to tobacco leaves without destroying the product. Thank God. Completely transforming the global supply chain and keeping my lip full of plug. Now, the centrifugal chiller came in 1922. That's when he completely redesigned the refrigeration compressor. And up until then, systems used, toxic, explosive gases that were one loose bolt away from turning a factory into a crater. Carrier invented a safe, low-pressure centrifugal machine that opened the door for residential and commercial spaces. And then, the third movement. The Cool Crown rivalries. All right, so there was this guy named Stuart W. Kramer, with a C, not with a K, like the cool guy on Seinfeld. Now, Stuart Kramer is the guy who actually coined the term air conditioning, and he did that in 1906. Kramer was a North Carolina textile giant who was using moisture control to keep cotton yarn from snapping. It was a bitter, silent race to see who could claim the throne of King of Humidity. But Carrier's engineering eventually eclipsed Kramer's textile focus. And then there was the ghost of John Gorey, because decades earlier, there was a Florida doctor named John Gorey who built an ice-making machine to cool yellow fever patients. Yellow fever, swamp fever. Gorey died broken because the Ice King, Frederick Tudor, slandered him to protect the northern ice trade. Carrier had to fight that exact same lingering public skepticism, the idea that mechanical cooling was unnatural, God-defying hubris. How dare you cool the air? But in the 1920s and 30s, Carrier was constantly also looking over his shoulder at chemical giants. Surprise, surprise, like, must I say DuPont? They were developing Freon. Carrier wanted mechanical and engineering control over the environment, but the big chemical boys wanted a monopoly on the refrigerants running through the veins of those machines. It was a wild, high-stakes poker game where Carrier held a pair of cold coils and somehow he bluffed the rest of the world into folding. Now look, if you think corporate handshakes today are complicated because somebody didn't use the correct pronoun in a Slack channel, you need to look at what happened when DuPont dropped Freon into the thermodynamic ecosystem in 1930. It completely upended Willis Carrier's chessboard, and he had to change his entire business model on the fly. It was a corporate pivot so sharp, well, it would have given Ferrari a whiplash. Let's break down how the chemical boys fundamentally altered the architecture of cool. Those guys are just involved in all kinds of nefarious things. First of all, it was the 1920s, and the problem was refrigeration ran on chemicals that were as friendly as, a cornered wolverine. And the menu, well, to make it, you had to have ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and methyl chloride, like you do. If your system sprang a leak, you weren't just calling a repairman, you were calling the coroner. So to keep those explosive gases from killing the movie goers, remember those movie theaters I talked about in 1925? Well, Carrier had to build these massive, heavy, low-pressure centrifugal chillers. And they were truly engineering masterpieces, but they were the size of a diesel locomotive, and they did cost a small fortune. So, enter Thomas Midgley and Charles Kettering over there at, remember? A group called General Motors? Well, they happened to invent a chlorofluorocarbon, CFC. That was a compound, and they partnered with DuPont to create the Kinetic Chemical Company. Say that 3 times fast. Kinetic Chemical Company, Kinetic Chemical Company, you know what I'm saying. So they trademarked this chemical as Freon. It's non-toxic, non-flammable, and it's so safe that Midgley literally inhaled it at a chemistry convention and blew out a candle just to prove that it wouldn't explode. Now suddenly, well, you didn't need Carrier's hyper-engineered armor-plated centrifugal compressors to keep things safe. No, anyone with a basic reciprocating compressor could just run Freon without turning their basement into a bomb casing. So Carrier couldn't just rely solely on his proprietary giant-scale industrial setups anymore. Now he had to adapt his machinery to utilize DuPont's new magic juice, Freon. And because Freon was stable under high pressure, compressors could suddenly shrink. Carrier shifted his research and development from giant industrial plants down to, localized comfort, your living room. In 1932, Carrier released the world's first self-contained home air conditioning unit using Freon. He went from being a guy who cooled entire textile mills and the Rockefeller Center to a guy trying to cool your living room, just like I said. Now, by 1933, Carrier had developed a new belt-driven condenser and blower system that utilized these very compact principles, and it became the literal DNA for every residential AC unit for the next 70 years. That'd take us to 2003. DuPont basically took the dark art of thermodynamics, as we know they are inclined to do, standardized the chemistry, and forced Carrier to stop thinking like a heavy utility industrialist and start thinking like a commercial appliance king. Now look, I don't want to sound like Al Gore giving a PowerPoint presentation at a Birkenstock convention, but when it comes to the climate, our collective addiction to air conditioning has landed us in a classic high-stakes catch-22 that is loopier than a Mobius strip coated in Escher drawings. Now, we are officially locked in a thermodynamic arms race with our own planet. Yes, we run the AC because the weather is hotter than a jalapeno's armpit, but running the AC is exactly what's making the weather hotter. Apparently. It's a self-perpetuating feedback loop that has environmental scientists drinking straight from the flask, which they probably are prone to do anyway. Here is the cold, hard data, friends, on how our quest for internal frost is baking our external cake. First of all, the chemistry. Well, we moved away from the old school Freon from the old DuPont folks to protect the ozone. But then we replaced them with hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs. They turned out to be greenhouse gases on absolute steroids. Brilliant. Pound for pound, some of these chemical refrigerants trap thousands of times more atmospheric heat than carbon dioxide does. Every time a window unit rattles loose or a car compressor gets junked, those molecules from CHFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, escape into the stratosphere, like prisoners skipping over the wall at San Quentin. The EPA is literally rewriting the rules just to force the industry into low global warming potential alternatives. Good Lord. Because our current coolant recipe, apparently, is essentially an atmospheric blowtorch. Okay, we'll see about that. So, when a heat wave hits, everyone from Bangor, Maine to Burbank, California turns their thermostat down to meat locker temperature simultaneously. And guess what, folks? That causes our power grids to groan like a bridge playing Jenga. And, of course, we've got to spend that electricity on other stuff, like data centers. Now, to prevent total blackout chaos, power companies fire up ancient fossil-fueled peaker plants. Peaker plants! What a great alliterative term. Peaker plants spew carbon into the sky faster than a 1970s coal train. Were they fast? I mean, maybe a soul train. Anyway, landmark studies show that global cooling capacity, friends, could more than triple by 2050. Of course, they always tell us that. They always make sure it's about 20 to 25 years ahead of us so that there's not enough of us who vote still around to check their data. But they say by 2050, things are going to be in trouble. Now we're looking at over 113 gigatons of cumulative greenhouse gas emissions just from trying to keep our living rooms at a crisp 68 degrees. Now, air conditioners don't actually destroy heat. If you didn't know that, what they actually do is they kind of just play landlord and evict it from your house onto the sidewalk. Isn't that fun? In massive concrete jungles like New York, Tokyo, or New Delhi, or even Des Moines, as it's slowly becoming, millions of outdoor compressors are constantly blasting hot exhaust directly into the alleyways. And it elevates at nighttime. Urban temperatures go up by several degrees, turning metropolitan downtowns into literal brick ovens. The irony. Of course, that forces the ACs to work even harder the next morning. Now, what we've done, friends, is essentially built a civilization where we can only survive the outdoor apocalypse we're actively creating by staying inside and pulling the blinds. Now, look, if you think navigating the bureaucracy of the DMV is a bureaucratic nightmare, friends, try taking a vacation to the old country during an August heat wave. You walk into a bistro in Madrid or a museum in Rome expecting that beautiful teeth-chattering blast of Willis Carrier's finest, only to find that the indoor climate is about as crisp as a damp gym sock. The rumor mill says that Europe has outright banned the AC. But that's a bit of hyperbole. What they've actually done is put the thermostat in a chokehold. Here's why the bureaucrats in Brussels, here's why they and across the continent of Europe are treating those folks' honest window units like an unregistered firearm, which is pretty bad in Europe. Now, here's the deal. The 27-degree club. So there's countries like Spain and Italy and Greece. What they did is they passed laws decreeing that public buildings like shops and restaurants, well, they cannot set their AC lower than 27 degrees Celsius, which nobody knows what that is. But that is apparently a balmy 80.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's almost 81 degrees Fahrenheit for those of us that are tracking with the imperial system like George Washington intended. Now, in France, if you run the AC with the shop door propped open to entice customers, the local gendarme will hit you with a fine faster than you can say la clim. and to look up French stuff. Now, in history, my friends, historic hubs like Florence or Paris, local ordinances now ban you from slapping an ugly, dripping compressor unit onto the facade of a 400-year-old Renaissance building, well, because it ruins the structural feng shui. That's true. So you've got the aesthetic embargo, you've got the closed-door policy, and the 27-degree club, which we might as well call the 80.6-degree Fahrenheit club for those of us here in America. Now, the energy crunch, Europe's energy grid, it's more tightly wound than a Swiss watch on a caffeine bender. And when geopolitical crises squeeze their natural gas supply, I don't know what could have caused that recently, the entire continent of Europe has to put its energy usage on a strict diet. And nobody likes strict diets, especially this time of year. The European Union introduced, by the way, a strict mandate, or several mandates actually, forcing installers to explicitly disclose a unit's energy efficiency before a consumer can buy it. And they want to choke out the cheap power-hogging window shakers before they even hit the retail floor. They don't have the opportunity to go to Walmart, well, for several reasons, and buy those things. No, they have to go through this whole expensive process in Europe. Nice. Way to go. The EU pledged to hit net zero climate neutrality by 2050. Just in time for that global situation that I mentioned earlier. 2050, they say. Now, if they let every apartment in the EU, from Munich to Marseille, install a cheap, unregulated condenser, wow, the soaring electricity demand would blow their green targets right out of the water. I mean, what a bunch of knuckleheads. So, European environmentalists view mechanical cooling as a lazy, short-term Band-Aid that actually exacerbates the root cause of global warming, and it prevents your armpit hair from really growing. It's a vicious cycle where you burn fossil fuels to cool the inside while raising the outside street temperature by up to 4 degrees Celsius, and then you can't have your Italian ice. Instead of relying on a compressor, the Euro blueprint focuses heavily on architectural resilience because they prefer heavy brick masonry that absorbs daytime heat. Well, that's true. They like smart solar shading instead of the dumb kind, and massive centralized district cooling pipelines that pump naturally chilled river water under cities like Paris and Stockholm. I imagine that's how a French person says Stockholm. Now, they aren't trying to make you suffer, friends. They're just trying to preserve their grid and their architecture, which is pretty nice. I do like European architecture, and they want to do it without turning their historic streets into a giant outdoor convection oven. And I don't want to sound like a medical examiner performing an autopsy on an urban legend, but the European obsession with the draft myth is one of the most magnificent, deeply entrenched pieces of pseudoscientific folklore since the medieval era. Now, you can take a continent like Europe, with a dozen Nobel Prizes in medicine, centuries of high-level academic enlightenment, and the literal discovery of penicillin. Man, but the second a gentle breeze passes through a room, the entire population of Europe panics like they've just encountered a rogue cloud of mustard gas. Well, it's an absolute multinational phobia, apparently, of moving air. Now, here's the breakdown on the great continental fear of the invisible current. First of all, in Italy, they call it un colpo di aria, which literally translates to a hit of air. Now, that sounds to me like a mob hit orchestrated by Mother Nature herself. In the Balkans, over there in former Yugoslavia and Romania, the nemesis is called promaja. I don't know if that's how they say it, but you can get it. Open your 2 windows at opposite sides of the bus in those countries, Yugoslavia and Romania, and the locals will look at you like you just pulled the pin on a grenade, which they would know about. And in Germany, well, they call it Zugluft. It's treated with the exact same level of existential dread as a structural radiation leak. Now, according to European folklore, a single stray breeze doesn't just give you a sniffle, friends. It can trigger a biblical or bubonic plague of highly specific ailments. We're talking about la cervicale, which is a stiff neck so severe that you look like a statuesque gargoyle, earaches, headaches, liver pain, and a complete shutdown of your digestive tract. I mean, maybe it's something else. Also, if you eat a heavy bowl of pasta and then you catch a draft in Europe, the cultural consensus over there is that the air will literally freeze the food in your stomach. I am not making this up, friends. That's called... I don't even know what that's called. What are we doing, Europe? Anyway, here's the deal. Let's state the absolute obvious. Louis Pasteur, did not spend his entire life isolating microbes just for us to blame a runny nose on a window being cracked open 2 inches or 4 centimeters or 5 centimeters. Now, you do not catch a virus from cold, moving air. You catch it from things like, where's Dr. Fauci? Pathogens, rhinoviruses, and probably influenza. Air conditioning units, they don't manufacture flu bugs out of thin air. They just move what's existing in the room atmosphere around. Yeah. A poorly maintained, dirty filter can harbor mold, and a dry air can actually irritate your nasal lining. But that's a maintenance issue. That's not an ambient curse from the god of wind. Come on, Europe. Because of this fear, our friends across the pond have developed a defense mechanism that looks like a high-fashion security blanket. So now you'll see people walking through Rome or Paris in the middle of a 75-degree May afternoon wearing a linen or wool scarf wrapped around their throats like they're preparing for an Arctic expedition. 75 degrees Fahrenheit. They are literally protecting their jugular from a rogue ceiling fan. That's all they're doing. It's a beautiful piece, an hilarious piece of cultural software that hasn't been updated, AC, since, 1348. No. That's not AC. AC's been around since 1901. 1348? Oh, that's right. I guess that would be a wool scarf. Now, these Europeans, though, they'll smoke cigarettes like chimneys and they'll drink espresso until their hearts thump like a dryer with a sneaker in it. But God forbid a vent blows toward their left shoulder. Oh, no. Now, since we are, by the way, dissecting the great global divides of comfort, if you want to trace the genesis of corporate claustrophobia and the rise of hypochondriac water cooler circles, well, then you're going to have to look at the bizarro world phenomenon, I'm not making this up, known as sick building syndrome, or SBS. So it's the ultimate 1970s hangover. Look at it this way. It's born out of a perfect storm of geopolitical panic, corner-cutting architecture, and office cubicle hysteria. Let's look at how the lines blurred between legitimate architectural malpractice and pure psychological melodrama. So, in 1973, we got the OPEC oil embargo. Energy costs, they go through the roof. So architects panicked, and they decided to turn corporate high-rise buildings into airtight thermoses to save a buck on heating and cooling. They literally glued the windows shut. They lowered the ceiling heights. Remember when everybody was lowering the ceilings? Let's put these ceiling tiles in. We'll lower the ceilings. And they chopped the amount of fresh outdoor air circulating through the vents in these buildings by half. So by 1984, the WHO, and we can always trust them, reported that up to 30% of new or remodeled buildings worldwide were triggering a bizarre laundry list of health complaints, such as workers walked into the office and suddenly developed headaches, fatigue, dizziness, nausea, and itchy skin. And that was before sexual harassment. The moment they clocked out at 5 p.m. and stepped onto the sidewalk, the symptoms miraculously vanished faster than a politician's campaign promise. Seems familiar. It wasn't a ghost in the machine, friends. It was a toxic soup of something called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. We still talk about them today. You had something like formaldehyde off-gassing from the cheap particle board desks. Yes. Oh, yes. The cheap remember those? Anyway, chemical solvents. They were evaporating from fresh synthetic carpets in the 70s. Delicious and colorful. And carbon dioxide, which was pooling in the corners of the buildings and the rooms in the buildings because the ventilation was, well, basically non-existent. But here's where the myth and the mass hysteria walk into the same room together and shake hands. Study after study by places like the National Institutes of Health, NIH, again, very trustworthy, showed that SBS symptoms skyrocketed in offices with high workplace stress. Micromanagers were also a problem, and low job satisfaction. And this was before the song 9 to 5 came out. If you hate your boss and your job is a dead end, you are 100 times more likely to swear that that ceiling tile is giving you a migraine. It was a legitimate physical issue supercharged by corporate existential dread. Corporate life. Delicious. Medical science draws a massive permanent marker line right here, though. Sick building syndrome has no, believe this or not, no identifiable specific disease cause. If you find a specific killer bug, it graduates into a completely different category called building-related illness, BRI. Okay, so now we're in 1976. Patient zero. That is exactly where and when Legionnaire's disease enters our little chat today. At a 1976 American Legion convention, this is why I don't go, at the Bellevue Stratford Hotel in Philadelphia, over 200 old-school veterans started just dropping like flies with a brutal, mysterious pneumonia. This is not funny because 34 of them died. Anyway, the CDC swarmed the place. They swarmed it. And they found a previously unknown gram-negative villain named Legionella pneumophila. It's odd that it had the first name of, like, Legionnaires. Anyway, the bacteria wasn't floating around because someone felt unappreciated by HR. It was literally breeding in the warm, stagnant soup of the hotel's massive air conditioning cooling towers. The ventilation fans sucked up that contaminated biological mist and aerosolized it directly into the lungs of the veterans downstairs. So, while sick building syndrome is a frustrating cocktail of stale carbon dioxide, copy machine ozone, and Sunday night anxiety, Legionnaire's disease is actually a concrete lethal biological weapon that proved if you don't clean your heavy-duty AC condenser, your building will literally try to murder you. Now, if you want to go down this architectural horror show, let me know. But the brass tacks are this. This is for informational purposes only, regarding some of the negative aspects of air conditioning. And for any actual medical advice you may need, if you're feeling those symptoms, you should probably consult a professional and not just go by what I say. Now, in the meantime, if you've been scrolling through your feeds lately, you know the 2026 World Cup has completely transformed the United States into a giant international cultural mixer. Yes, we've got millions of European football fans landing on our shores, expecting, I suppose, a dystopian concrete wasteland populated entirely by a bunch of cowboys and guys eating deep-fried butter. But instead, they hit the midsummer humidity of places like Houston and Kansas City, where the air is soupier than a bowl of gumbo at a bayou wedding, and they discovered our actual crowning achievement in America. Aggressively chilled indoor spaces, baby. Yes. Forget the football on the pitch, whatever that is. Our central air is the undisputed breakout MVP of this entire FIFA tournament. Here are 10 recent hilariously documented examples of continental travelers who stepped out of the swelter and became absolute converts to the church of our friend Willis Carrier. A French content creator going by, I don't know, at other Michael Phelps. Oh, at other Michael Phelps. It's hard for me to read things like that. Anyway, he touched down in the sweltering heat of Texas and was so utterly blown away by the refrigeration that he went viral on TikTok, claiming Americans need to add a whole new verse to the Star-Spangled Banner just dedicated entirely to air conditioning. Then, a soccer fan from Britain took to social media to confess that the UK has been playing the comfort game completely wrong, noting that back home, AC is treated like some mythical, unattainable luxury where people tell you to just open a window. But after stepping into a freezing American Airbnb, he realized the absolute error of his ways. An overseas supporter struggling through a blistering 35 degrees Celsius, which is, by the way, a 95 degree Fahrenheit match day, for soccer. That was outside. He looked directly into a camera and gasped, "Thank God Americans actually have AC," because the outdoor air felt like walking into a hairdryer. That's how hot he felt. Now, there was also a bewildered European tourist that logged on to TikTok to marvel at the sheer architectural magic of American thermodynamics, noting how insane it is that you can walk out of a 100-degree afternoon and directly into a building so cold you literally have to put on a winter coat. I mean, that's a little dramatic. And then there was the German traveling fan posting a stunned reaction video after walking into one of our, monolithic NFL-sized host stadiums, completely awestruck that a structure that massive could be chilled down to the temperature of a meat locker, despite 100,000 screaming fans inside. You're welcome. And then the Scandinavians. There was a Scandinavian supporter bouncing between host cities who admitted on social media that after surviving just 5 minutes in Kansas City's sticky summer air, walking into a 68-degree hotel lobby ceased to feel like a standard amenity and started to feel like a national treasure. It's just one of them. And then, of course, a traveling fan from Scotland named Shah, of course. And that person came over to follow his team to Boston. That guy went viral, or woman, I don't know, Shah, after discovering that American hotels don't just chill the air, they have a gargantuan free ice machine on every single floor. Yes, free ice. Welcome to America. A concept that shocked him into pure thermodynamic bliss. And by the way, Scotland, you should declare your independence. The sensible 72 truce. What's this? Well, there's a German football fan named Uni Hoppe who enjoys watching matches at a muggy Washington, D.C. pub called Pitchers, and admitted, I don't know if Uni is a man or a woman. Oh, it's a woman. Admitted that while her family grew up without ever turning on a compressor, I guess that's a childhood memory, she thoroughly enjoyed not sweating through her jeans thanks to the bar's sensible 72-degree setting. Uni, is sweating through your jeans a German problem for women? Well, apparently so. Avoid Germany until Oktoberfest, which is the end of September. Now, there's a group of Spanish supporters in this whole FIFA World Cup thing who posted a video recently explaining that they started buying tickets to random American movie theaters on non-match days because not to watch the movies. Does this sound familiar? But strictly to huddle under the vents because it was the most glorious escape from the midday fan fest swelter. Welcome back to 1925, Spaniards. And lastly, an Italian traveler jokingly posted that after a week of navigating the heavily climate-controlled malls and restaurants of Miami, well, he completely forgot about his grandmother's warnings regarding un colpo di aria, the dreaded hit of cold air. Because the pure, crisp comfort was worth whatever mythical neck-ache Nanak threatened him with. Friends, we've basically used the World Cup to pull off, in America, the ultimate cultural psyop. They came for the football, my friends, but they're leaving with a deep spiritual reverence for the American HVAC grid. Now look, if you thought the European fixation on our air conditioning was a massive psychological leap, you haven't seen anything yet. No, because the 2026 World Cup crowd has completely lost its collective mind over the sheer, unadulterated scale of American consumerism. Yes, they crossed the Atlantic, however they did it, expecting the Statue of Liberty keychains and Mickey Mouse ears, but instead they stumbled into the suburban cathedrals of the American retail grid and a certain buttermilk-based condiment. They are reacting like medieval peasants who just walked into Versailles. Here are 10 recent, hilariously accurate examples of continental travelers who are losing their minds over Bass Pro Shops, Buc-ee's, Costco, Walmart, and the white gold we call ranch dressing. A crew of traveling German soccer fans bypassed the standard Memphis Blues clubs and instead did a full reverent walkthrough of the Bass Pro Shops at the Pyramid. They posted a video wandering past the indoor alligator swamp. Yes, we have those. And the massive gun counters. God bless America. They were just... Can you imagine the Germans? They were completely paralyzed by the fact that a store for hunting deer is larger than the actual Roman Colosseum. Then there were the British sports pundit who stopped at a Texas Buc-ee's on the way to a match in Houston and went viral after trying beaver nuggets for the first time, which is a funny name. He spent 10 minutes on TikTok trying to explain to his audience why a petrol station needs 120 fueling pumps. Yes, America. An entire wall of beef jerky. duh, and a mascot that looks like a cartoon rodent on a sugar rush. Then there was a couple from Madrid, that's in Spain, I think, and it managed to get a guest pass to an American Costco, which I visited just the other day, and posted a shell-shocked reaction to the sheer bulk buy geometry of it all. They were absolutely transfixed by a jar of mayo, I've seen it, the size of a fire hydrant, and they couldn't understand why a civilized society requires a 48-pack of toilet paper. I mean, duh. Have you been to a Buc-ee's? Yet they still bought the hot dog combo with the food court, and they called it a culinary triumph. Way to go, Spain. And to the French. There was a content creator from France who documented his first trip to a 24-hour Walmart after a late-night match. Now, he was completely mesmerized. I don't know if that's how they say it. By the aisle length. The aisle length of the Walmart. That's right, France. You should be mesmerized by the length of our aisles. Remember that. Noting that you could fit in his entire Parisian apartment his building in Paris inside the electronics section. Oof. Probably no AC. And they spent 5 minutes, this guy spent 5 minutes marveling at a shelf containing 50 different varieties of breakfast cereal. Well, obviously. I mean, come on. It's part of a healthy breakfast. An Italian football fan posted a TikTok that nearly got him exiled from Rome. He dipped a slice of American pepperoni pizza. I'm a little nervous about this one since he's, Italian. He dipped that pepperoni pizza in America directly into a cup of Hidden Valley Ranch. He declared it a masterpiece of flavor chemistry. That's not how he said it. Somewhere between Jersey Shore and Rome. And it's Hidden Valley Ranch. These guys invented pizza, and he loves the ranch on his pepperoni pizza? Now, he admitted that back home, his grandmother, Nona, she would have thrown a rolling pin at his head, like they do. But in America, that tangy buttermilk nectar is the undisputed king of sauces. Or, as Jim Gaffigan would say, smells like buttermilk and sadness. Then there was a traveling Scandinavian fan, like they do, those Viking types, spent an entire hour inside a Florida Bass Pro Shop just sitting inside a fully rigged bass fishing boat parked inside the showroom. He spent an entire hour in the boat in the showroom. And then he tweeted that America is the only place on earth where you can buy a camouflage hunting boat, a live aquarium fish, and motorized watercraft under the exact same roof. They end, like all their sentences end in like an uplift question mark. Yeah, that was the guy from Scandinavia. We won't name which one. Then there was, of course, the group of the Dutch supporters. The Dutch. There's two things I can't say. According to Austin Powers' dad, is anyway, the Dutch. Anyway, so these guys they were going to a World Cup match wearing matching tie-dye Buc-ee's t-shirts and trucker hats like you do when you're trying to blend in from the Netherlands or Holland. Or why are they called the Dutch? It's got like 3 names. It's odd, very small. Then a local news reporter asked them about it. These Dutch guys, who had way more vowels than they were supposed to bring into the country in their name, admitted that they spent more money on branded Beaver merchandise, careful, during a roadside pit stop than they did on their actual tickets to the match. And these tickets, by the way, are $500 to $1,000. Danita Landa. Okay, there's a British fan who became obsessed with the sheer scale of the Costco bakery, which I can understand, posting a picture holding a giant half-sheet cake that could feed a small infantry division. Very small, and probably British. But he remarked that in the UK, a cake is a delicate tea time affair. But in America, why, it's a structural engineering project meant to test the limits of human insulin production. Correct. A French tourist logged on to social media to marvel at how Americans treat ranch dressing not as a salad topper, but as a universal solvent. Again, correct. He watched a guy at a sports bar put it on hot wings. Yeah, I prefer blue cheese. French fries. This guy put it on French fries, pizza, hot wings, a celery stick. Well, that makes sense. And he concluded that ranch is essentially the WD-40 of the American digestive tract. Yeah, correct. And with ketchup, I suppose. So then there's the German fan, and I'll wrap it up with this one. on this particular subject. German fan used the strict, hyper-regulated mechanics of the Autobahn. That's what he's used to. Walked into a Walmart tire center and was stunned that you could get your oil changed, buy a mountain bike, pick up a prescription, and buy a gallon of milk without ever moving your car to a different parking space. He called it terrifyingly efficient. Yes! We got a compliment from the Germans when it comes to efficiency. Now, friends, we've basically colonized these Europeans' minds with high fructose corn syrup, bulk rate pricing, and outdoor lifestyle monoliths. Now, they came to watch this beautiful game of soccer. That's what they call it. But they're going home with a trunk full of beaver nuggets and a deep spiritual craving for processed buttermilk. You're welcome. Now look, if you think watching a dog walk on its hind legs is a masterclass in awkward choreography, friends, you need to watch a continental European supermarket chain try to replicate the American bulk buy model back home. They're trying this in Europe because of what's happening at FIFA. It is an exercise in cultural cognitive dissonance that is loopier than a David Lynch film festival sponsored by IKEA. You've got executives in places like Paris, Frankfurt, and Milan looking at the unprecedented retail data coming out of the 2026, that's right now, World Cup tourism boom in America, where their own European citizens are coming home with eyes the size of dinner plates, muttering collectively about the glory of Costco. Which is, everybody once they go to a Costco does that, whether you're in Europe or here. And they're trying to build their miniature temples of mass consumption in Europe, but they are running into a slight structural and philosophical brick wall. Because here's the riff on why European hyper-bulk experiment with, merchandising is just doomed to be a beautiful train wreck. See, to build a proper American-style warehouse store, you need a footprint the size of a small sovereign nation, and they have a lot of those in Europe. And you also need a parking lot that requires its own zip code. So European real estate, which is, by the way, tighter than the skin on a grape, you can't just clear a forest in Bavaria, Schwarzwald, to build a warehouse, my friends. You're dealing with zoning laws protected by ancient Druid curses, allegedly, and 1,000 years of municipal red tape. That is true. Now, they try to pack these bulk items into existing urban grocery stores, resulting in, a 3-pack of giant cereal boxes that block an entire aisle like a disabled container ship in the Suez Canal. Let's be honest, it's the Strait of Hormuz. The entire American bulk buy model is predicted on the fact that every suburban home, predicated on the fact that every suburban home has a stainless steel refrigerator the size of an absolute monolith. Duh. We definitely have one of those, or 2 of them, or maybe 3. Plus, there's a secondary chest freezer in the garage that hasn't been turned off since 1994. And I know some of you old farmers still have that International brand from 1954. Now, in Europe, the average kitchen refrigerator is about the size of an American hotel minibar. Tiny refrigerators in Europe. It holds 3 slices of prosciutto, half a brock of brie, and a bottle of sparkling water, and that is it. Now, if a guy from Amsterdam buys a 64-pack of toilet paper and a 5-gallon drum of olive oil from Costco, he literally has to sleep on the balcony in his crappy little European apartment because there's no physical room left in his flat. And then there's this whole problem with getting things around. Americans roll up to Costco in an SUV that has its own gravitational pull. Now, you throw 600 pounds of cargo in the back, and then you drive away with it. Sometimes I take my pickup, maybe a trailer. But try strapping a 48-pack of paper towels and an industrial-sized jar of Hidden Valley Ranch to take to the back of a Vespa. Ciao, baby. Or just trying to drag it onto the Parisian metro during rush hour. Get out of here. You look less like a savvy shopper and more like a pack mule migrating from the Andes. And for centuries, the European culinary philosophy has always been about walking down to the local boulangerie, which is actually one of my favorite French words, means bakery, and market, and every single day, you just go there to buy 1 baguette, 2 tomatoes, and a single fish that was swimming that morning while smoking cigarettes and grabbing somebody's bottom. It's a romantic, artisanal lifestyle. But when a giant chain like Carrefour or Lidl tries to introduce a cardboard pallet containing 12 jars of peanut butter, the local population views it not as a bargain, but as a direct, soul-crushing attack on their cultural identity by the dark forces of American hyper-capitalism. However you want to take it. They do want the profit margins, babe, but they don't want the lifestyle infrastructure to support the weight of the cardboard box. It's like having to try to put a V8 engine inside a pocket watch. Now, since we are dissecting the great global retail, sometimes I read faster than I talk. Since we are dissecting the great global retail collision, I usually don't write my own scripts, but this one I really put some thought into. If you thought the cross-Atlantic cultural shock of European football fans discovering the American HVAC grid was a classic piece of geopolitical comedy, well, then you need to turn your telescope right over there to the Far East. Our friends in the Far East. Right now, as a historic heat dome packs its massive high-pressure ass over continental Europe and parks it. It didn't pack it. Two different meanings, but both happen in Europe. Anyway, it turns Paris into a pizza oven. The netizens over there in China and the Chinese social media platforms like Weibo and Xiang are watching the swelter, and they're throwing some of the most magnificent, have you seen this, high-level shade since the construction of the Great Wall. They have coined a hilarious new term called AC Freedom, which in Chinese is a bunch of weird characters we can't read, and they're using it to mock the old country. That means Europe, but to China, I don't think it's that old. They're mocking them like a tech billionaire looking at a guy trying to start a fire with two sticks. Here's what we're going to talk about. The great digital trolling of the Euro heatwave from China. The undisputed heavyweight gold medal Chinese social media trolling going on right now, is I'm not making this up, a viral video circulating of industrial pig farms in China that have air conditioning, and the Europeans don't. What it does is it shows a rows of pristine, blissfully happy swine rolling about in massive barns equipped with heavy-duty, centralized climate control systems. I don't think that they're that massive, to be honest with you. I mean, compared to America, we're pretty big on, putting our pigs in big barns. But anyway, Chinese got them air conditions, and netizens over there in China are sharing it with captions like, an ordinary pig in Chongqing lives a more climate-controlled lifestyle than a marquis in a Parisian loft. I mean, I spelled that out and made it a lot more clear than like normal Chinese directions on something that you buy, but you get the idea. When your livestock has a lower core body temperature than a tourist trying to climb the Eiffel Tower, friends, you have essentially lost the thermodynamic bragging rights. Now, in a move of pure diabolical psychological warfare, these tech-savvy China folks have been taking videos of giant high-definition digital billboards in major cities, and they display ultra-crisp looping graphics of spinning cooling fans and blasting air conditioners. Why? And they're tagging the European travel vloggers who are currently melting in 104-degree heat down in Florence. It is the digital equivalent of waving a bottle of ice water in front of a guy dragging himself across the Sahara Desert. That's what these Chinese guys are doing. And then there's a video that went apparently hyper-viral across Asian feeds, which, I'm not a part of, but showing a fearless female air conditioning technician dubbed Spider Woman. And she's scaling the side of a high-rise apartment like Peter Parker with a wrench to install an exterior condenser block. Now, the Chinese commentators are using her to mock Europe's paralyzing gridlock, pointing out that while it takes a year of bureaucratic permits, historical facade committees, and architectural impact studies, whatever those are, just to drill a hole in a wall in Vienna, a technician in Shenzhen will scale a female technician will scale a 40-story building on a Tuesday morning just so someone can watch TV at a comfortable 68 degrees Fahrenheit, obviously. China's manufacturing and grid, well, they produce over 50%, no surprise there, of the entire planet's air conditioning units because they were probably thought up somewhere else like America, and then these weirdo corporate types in America have them made in China. And appliance giants like Midea and Haier, I guess I do have a couple of those higher ones, are basically running their factories at 110% capacity right now just to ship portable units where? To Europe. Netizens? That's what you call people that are on the World Wide Web. They're tracking the shipping container data like a fantasy football league. I'm not making this up. And they're laughing at the irony that Europe, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, now has to sit by the mailbox like weirdos waiting for a delivery truck from Guangdong just to survive the month of June. And the consensus on Weibo is simple. Not that I read it, but it's a fun word to say. Reminds me of those warbly little toys we had, like with Weeble Wobbles. But it's Weibo, and you can have all the Renaissance art in the world over there in Europe and classical philosophy that you want, but if you don't have a stable power grid pushing 10 trillion kilowatt hours to run your household appliances, oh, Europe, you're just a historical museum with a very, very sweaty and stinky gift shop. Now, it is a total shift, friends, in the global hierarchy of comfort, and the internet is just not letting Europe forget about it. Now, look, if you want to see what happens when the absolute immovable object of European bureaucratic red tape collides with the irresistible force of Chinese manufacturing ingenuity, you need to look at a little piece of thermodynamic sabotage known as the Porta-Split air conditioner. This just isn't an appliance, friends. This is a Trojan horse wrapped in a compressor block specifically engineered by Chinese tech giants to throw a legal monkey wrench into the gears of Europe's tyrannical landlord cartels. It is a masterpiece of regulatory evasion that would make a tax attorney blush. That's hard to do. Let's break down now how China managed to smuggle Willis Carrier's gospel right past the European Historic Preservation Society. So, if you're a tenant renting an apartment in Berlin, Paris, or Milan during a midsummer meltdown, your landlord has more power over your life than a feudal lord did in the Middle Ages. You want to install a standard split system AC? Well, too bad, brother. You can't drill a hole through the external brick masonry because it violates historical preservation codes. And you certainly can't mount an external condenser on the wall because it alters the architectural aesthetic harmony, quote unquote, of a building that hasn't been washed since the Franco-Prussian War. And if you touch that wall without a 3-year permit process and a signed decree from the mayor, your landlord's going to evict you faster than you can say, Auf Wiedersehen. Appliance monoliths like Medea looked at this legal gridlock and they realized they were sitting on a gold mine if they could just design a loophole that you could plug into a wall outlet. But how? How do we do it? Enter this Porta-Split. It's a funny word that could be used for other circumstances. It's the world's first split system air conditioner that requires zero drilling, zero structural modification, and zero tools, metric not included. Instead of a thick bundle of copper wires that requires a heavy-duty masonry drill bit, they engineered an ultra-thin, flat, flexible refrigerant hose that is barely thicker than a piece of fettuccine. You place the heavy cooling unit inside your room. That's where it should go. Then you hang the condenser unit out the window using a temporary bracket, and then you close the window right on top of the flat hose. Then a special rubber seal snaps around it to keep the outside air out. And because the entire system can be unhooked and packed into a suitcase in under 5 minutes, the Porta-Split legally qualifies as a portable appliance, not a structural fixture. Legally, your landlord can no more stop you from hanging a Porta-Split in Europe out your window than they can stop you from plugging in a toaster or setting up a desk fan. You have completely bypassed the historical facade committees because you haven't damaged a single molecule of the building's exterior. Brilliant! These Chinese tech feeds, what they're doing is they're treating this like a geopolitical victory and laughing in their funny Chinese voices all the way to the bank, while European courts are spending months debating the legal rights to a tenant to enjoy a draft. Chinese engineers, what they've done is just bypass the whole judicial branch in Europe with a flexible hose and a clever clamp. But the Chinese have always been good at noodles, right, Italy? Now, it is a total corporate chess move. Believe me, they turned the windowsill in Europe into a battleground, and they won that war without ever picking up a drill. It's no wonder we declared independence on a hot July in 1776. And that gives me the opportunity to play a Sunnyside Farm Studios original. We call it the Declaration of Independence song.
It's like, yeah. When in the course of human events, people gotta dissolve some bands. Political connections getting thin. Time to declare why we begin. Show some respect to the world. Tell them what's what. We hold these truths right up front. Self-evident, no stun. All in our the pursuit of happy. These rights are unalienable, no snappy. To secure these governments are made from the consent of the governed, no charade. When a long train of abuses unwinds, time for new binds. Yeah, we hold these truths right up front, self-evident, no stun. All men are created equal, see endowed by the Creator with liberty. We hold these truths right up front, self-evident, no stun. All men are created equal, see endowed by the Creator with liberty. Yeah. 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 We hold these truths right up front, self-evident, no stun. All men are created equal, see endowed by the Creator with liberty. We hold these truths right up front, self-evident, no stun. All men are created equal, see endowed by the Creator with liberty.
Feel free to play that on the boat or wherever it is that you happen to be enjoying this wonderful weekend for the 4th of July. Let's wrap up this entire weird thermodynamic tapestry just put it up in a nice, neat little bow, friends, because when you stand back and you look at the macro grid, it is clear that everything has been leading to this exact moment. Because, see, here we are in the blistering midsummer of 2026, and the United States of America is currently pulling off the ultimate doubleheader of cultural dominance. We are simultaneously hosting the World Cup, number one, and prepping for the mother of all milestone bashes thus far, which is our 250th birthday party of American independence this 4th of July on Saturday. The entire planet lives and dies by soccer. They call it the beautiful game, and they track every penalty kick like it's a matter of national security. But let's face it, we've been their national security for most of the last 60 or 70 years. Now, we're Americans, and we're hosting this massive tournament. It's good that we're doing that. Yet our collective national response is basically polite yawn. We don't really even care about it. We're Americans. We like our football with pads, thank you very much, a 30-second commercial break every 2 minutes, and a stadium snack that requires a liability waiver. We're welcoming millions of these European travelers who spent centuries looking down their noses at our lack of historical nuance. But the second they hit our shores in July, their cultural superiority completely evaporated under a wave of, that 95-degree humidity. And they can teach us, I guess they came to teach us, how to kick a ball. But they ended up staying here to learn how to live like civilized human beings. See, while they've spent decades letting their grid lock up over the draft myth, our boy Willis Carrier bypassed all the philosophical hand-wringing and gave us the ultimate American birthright, the power to create a localized polar vortex inside a Texas shopping mall. Think about it, friends. On July 4th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson and the boys were huddled inside a suffocating Independence Hall in Philadelphia, sweating through their wool waistcoats, swatting away horseflies, of course, frantically fanning themselves with the Declaration of Independence, just to survive that heat. Now, 250 years later, we have perfected the Union. True American freedom isn't just about throwing tea into the Boston Harbor. No, it's about the liberty to walk into a Bass Pro Shop Pyramid, buy a 48-pack of toilet paper, drink a gallon of Hidden Valley Ranch, and do it all in an environment so aggressively refrigerated you can see your own breath. Check out my hooks as the DJ revolves it with this new track from the sunny side of Life Farm Studios.
From Independence Hall to the moonlit sky. A crowd of hungry dreamers made a wild idea fly. Cornfields, harbor lights, mill towns, desert roads. Every hand's on heart helped carry what we strove. And through the fire, we held a line, built something bold out of borrowed time. Side by side, we kept our vow. Look at us now. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday, America. Sunny side of life, sunny side of life. One brave spark turned into light. Happy birthday, America, tonight. Paper in a room, turning into law. Kids with dusty sneakers, learning to stand tall. From the first red dawn to the rocket's climb, we kept reaching farther, one heart step at a time. And through the fire, we held a line, built something bold out of borrowed time. Side by side, we kept our vow. Look at us now. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday, America. Sunny side of life, sunny side of life. One brave spark turned into light. Happy birthday, America, tonight. Raise it up high for the roads we rode, for the hearts that bent but refused to fold, for every hand that built this home. We're still singing, and we're not alone. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday, America. Funny side of life, sunny side of life. One brave spark turned into light. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday, America. Sunny side of life, sunny side of life. From sea to sea we shine tonight. Happy birthday, America, tonight.
Yeah, you can play that one on the boat more than once if you want to, even before you get on the boat. You don't even have to be on a boat. Be wherever you are, grilling those dogs, burgers, whatever it happens to be. We won the geopolitical game a long time ago, friends. Europe, well, they can have the World Cup trophy. Oh, we'll take the Central Air, thank you very much. And as we approach the big 250, let me know how you plan to celebrate this July 4th. And go ahead and send me a message by texting the show. Or if you're really feeling your all-American oats this weekend, you can send me a voicemail. Same way, through the show notes and send us a message. And it's not terribly, as long as it's not terribly offensive, okay? It can't be terribly offensive to our younger listeners. So I'll screen them. But I'll, if you do that, I'll include it in next week's show as well. That'll be fun. Little 4th of July, happy birthday, America message from all the listeners that call in. And I don't know, maybe you'll do it, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll write in. It's fine. Whatever you decide to do, you'll come up with something, I'm sure. In the meantime, Go ahead and use the link to sign up for our newsletter once again, which does come out tomorrow, and it does include the private links to the YouTube videos about the many projects that we have going on here at Sunnyside. And share with us your patriotic pals and all of your friends and neighbors. And by all means, have a very, very, very happy birthday, America, and may she always be a shining beacon of the sunny side of life to the world.
When the shadows fall and doubts begin to creep, remember together we're strong, never weak. Lift your neighbor up with kindness every day. Let your actions speak the words you want to say.
The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. None of this is possible, of course, without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory.
Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life in Christ be made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.